I think it was the Clippers team there who didn't want us to speak anymore, but that's okay, I guess. We just want to come back and we just start from where we left off. And I think we're going to ask, we were discussing about what's next for the Clippers. So, of course, I mean, it's going to be, an interesting off season for these guys. So, Mr. Patel, what do you think?
Well, the technical difficulties are not going to let us stop from, bashing the Clippers, rightfully so. But I think a big question for the Clippers is going to be, will Doc Rivers return? Because he's really, like you said, struggled with adjustments. He really didn't have control of this team. I think Mr. Kumar, if you watch him majority of the games, he kind of just sat back like he was at the beach and be like, oh, we have Kawhi Leonard, we have Paul George, we have all this depth, they'll figure it out. No, Coach Rivers, you got to figure it out and make the necessary adjustments and game plans to allow your team to be successful. But I think Doc Rivers is going to stay because the Clippers need a championship coach, even though he did win in 2008. It was a long time ago. So, like you said, they're most likely going to get rid of, Montrezl Harrell and Marcus Morris due to trade, maybe Reggie Jackson. But I think they need a point guard, Mr. Kumar. Patrick Beverley, he'll give you everything on the defensive end, but he struggles on the offensive end. Teams literally leave him wide open, daring him to shoot. So I think you need a solid point guard that can facilitate the offense and also get his own shot and that can play both sides of the floor.
Yeah, Pat Bev is all talk and no action because he can only defend. He averaged, I think, 4 points or 6 points this entire series. So, of course, you cannot have somebody like that who's a liability on the offensive side and, can pretty much only defend a player. And that, too, I mean, he defends by fouling. I mean, he pretty much got fouled out in a couple of the games. So that doesn't make sense to me. But at the end of the day, they need a good rim protector, especially if Anthony Davis and LeBron James continue at the Lakers, because they're gonna. I mean, it's hard to stop them without a good center, and the same goes for the other Western teams, and that's what they faced with Jokic as well, because there was nobody to stop him, right? Yeah. And that's one of the key aspects that probably the Clippers need to address right at the beginning. But you know what? I'm not too sure on what's going to happen to Doc Rivers, but I don't know. I just want to check one thing, whether Steve Ballmer owns, our Restream channel or something, because maybe he cut off that, channel right there when we are, bashing up the Clippers.
He's like, don't be talking about my team like that, even though he has to probably be very frustrated. He spent all this money, all these resources. They're getting a new stadium. And if they don't have any championship, Mr. Kumar, there's no other way to put it. It's a failure with all caps. And we'll see, because the Clippers are acting, confident for next year. But remember, the Warriors are still waiting in the wings. The Lakers are still there. The Nuggets. So it's going to be a deep Western Conference. So there's no guarantee that the Clippers can get back. Actually wasted an opportunity this year. So now moving on to our weekly recap section. Our topic is going to be starting about Giannis, discussion about Giannis' future. So Mr. Kumar, I'll let you take it away.
Well, I mean, so far, I think it's been pretty okay. He met with the owners of the Milwaukee Bucks, and so far, he's been assuring the public that he's not going to ask for a trade, and he's going to remain as a Milwaukee Bucks. But I mean, the Bucks also need to address some personnel issues, right? They let go of Malcolm Brogdon right at the beginning of the season last year, and that really affected having a third scorer for the Milwaukee Bucks. So I think they really need to address that particular situation and probably, put a couple of guys to help out Giannis. And Giannis himself needs to improve his shooting. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah. No, he really does. He needs to improve his game, and the players around him, they need to get more shooters around Giannis Antetokounmpo. And, to surround him, because when he drives to the basket, then they forces the defense to help. And you can just kick it out to deadly shooters. And, they have a decision to make about Chris Middleton, because they did pay him a lot of money. But 2 years in a row, he kind of struggled in the playoffs, as well as Eric Bledsoe and, George Hill. So do the Bucks need a couple more playmakers, maybe a couple more guards? There's some rumors that they're looking at, Chris Paul. That's a great veteran that's a pass-first kind of guy that'll get Giannis into spots and they'll play good defense and is a good leader for them. So the Bucks have a lot of interesting personnel decisions. But Mr. Kumar, if Giannis, I'm very happy if Giannis stays next year and he stays for the long run, because for the small market team and to keep the NBA competitive, the Giannis needs to stay in Milwaukee, and he seems like he likes Milwaukee. He has a family. He's been raising them there, his kid there. So I think he's very comfortable with the city, and he has a lot of love for the city, and I think that'll go a long way.
I hope so. I mean, I think that's what the entire Milwaukee, fans are hoping for, that Giannis pretty much, stays back. And I think it'll be great because that will also keep the East a little bit competitive. Of course, if he goes to the West, then again, there's another, stronger team in the West. But here's a look at the pictures. And after about 4 weeks of the playoffs, we are into the conference finals, and the Lakers Nuggets playing in the West, and Miami and Boston playing in the East. They've already played a game, and they'll start their second game tomorrow. But I think we had the story about the Bucks and Heat last week. They got beaten 4-1, which is a bad sign. But I think the game of the second round has been the Toronto Raptors and Boston Celtics. What a game, man. What a game. But
Wow.
let me tell you, I think Boston would be kicking themselves for letting Toronto come back into the series.
Yeah, they almost let Toronto come back, from a 2-0 or 0-2 deficit. But, Celtics handled their business, in Game 7. Mr. Kumar, like you said, what a wild Game 7. I was at the edge of my seat. Both teams played really hard, really well. But it was just all about the Boston Celtics. Tatum had a big game, 29 points. Jaylen Brown had 21 points. Marcus Smart continued to be hot, scoring 16 points. And Kemba Walker added 14 points. So it was just a really well-balanced scoring effort from the Boston Celtics. And Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam really struggled for the Raptors. But it was just more about the Celtics. And Mr. Kumar, what about that block that Marcus Smart had on Norman Powell to preserve that 89-87 lead? Oh, we've seen some incredible blocks these last couple of rounds, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, but, at the end of the day, the only person the Toronto Raptors need to thank is OG Anunoby, because, that third game turned it around for the Raptors, because it's going to go 3-0. I mean, it was pretty much done. There was 0.5 seconds left. And, I don't know, it was a brain freeze for, Brad Stevens, who, drew out that zone defense. And I didn't like it a bit. And OG Anunoby, I mean, you got to give, props for him for making that particular shot. And then, that led, Toronto Raptors to at least get an opportunity to beat Boston Celtics and, come back into the series. So, but, again, Bucks, Toronto Raptors. I think I picked the Bucks, you picked the Toronto Raptors. Both go out in the second round. So I think, we got to give definitely credit to the Heat and the Boston Celtics.
And definitely. And Mr. Kumar, if I told you at the beginning of the season that the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics would be at the Eastern Conference Finals, we would have both laughed and be like, no, you're crazy. Like, that's not going to happen. But, the bubble, it's in a neutral site. Anything could happen. And we saw that, in the series. And, the Toronto Raptors, they had a great season. They almost made it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, the defending champs, but they can hold their heads high. They have a great team. They just extended Nick Nurse, and they have a really bright future. And if Pascal Siakam, he struggled a little bit as the main guy, but if he gets his stuff together next year, then look for the Raptors to be able to bounce back and be at the top of the East again.
Yeah, so again, we'll be discussing more about the Heat and Boston Celtics in the conference, matchup section. But I think we'll move on to the next game, and which is my favorite game, my favorite series, which is the Lakers and the Houston Rockets. Once again, I think people underestimated the power of the Lakers. I don't understand. I really don't understand why people hate LeBron so much. Because it's like when they were playing Portland, it was like people thought that Portland, after winning their first game, they would sweep. That was a crazy suggestion by any. And of course, even the Houston Rockets won that first game, and everybody thought that this is going to be a 7-game series, and Lakers are going to have the toughest road to the playoffs and everything. And look at it. I mean, they're like 8-2. They're 8-2 going into the conference finals, and they come back into the conference finals after a gap of 10 years.
All I gotta say is the Rockets were the Rockets, and the Lakers really flexed their muscles and inserted their dominance. 19 three-pointers in the closing Game 5, Mr. Kumar. Kyle Kuzma played well. Marcus Morris, Kadavius Caldwell-Pope. The others were really the key for the Lakers in the series. And basically, after Game 3, the Rockets just tapped out a bit. It was like, no mas, Lakers. You go ahead and win. They didn't want the smoke. They wanted nothing to do with the Lakers. And the Rockets were just the Rockets. And it was a typical Mike D'Antoni team, a front-running team. You know, they play well in Game 1. We think that they have promise in this series. But no, they just fade away. And this shows you, Mr. Kumar, that the Rockets style of style of playing and running and gunning and shooting a lot of threes and not playing much defense will not work and win championships in the NBA. That was the biggest takeaway, and major changes are coming for the Rockets. But the Lakers took care of business. I'm glad to see LeBron James advance to the Western Conference Finals. The NBA is definitely better when LeBron James and the Lakers are good and when they're advancing. The king of LA.
King!
So now we ran a poll asking about the Clippers and the Nuggets Game 7, who's going to win. And the audience was like both of us, Mr. Kumar. They picked the Clippers to win Game 7 at 51%. But as you know, the Nuggets took care of business. And now, Mr. Kumar, let's dive deeper into the Nuggets because we haven't given them enough credit. And let's talk about what they did to be able to beat the Clippers in Game 7.
First and foremost, I think you have to applaud Jokic and Jamal Murray. You know, they pretty much bulldozed through the defense of the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers were like, this defense is impenetrable, or nobody can get away with the perimeter defense of Pat Bev and Leonard and George and whatnot. But just two guys, they pretty much killed the Clippers with just pick and roll. Just a pick and roll, switch, and of course, they were pretty much supported by Jeremy Grant, Michael Porter Jr., Gary Harris came back after the injury. So, this team is just super confident. Their confidence is like at a really high level, and they're thinking, you know what? People think us of like being underdogs, and pretty much, actually, Jamal Murray outscored Paul George, Leonard, and Lou Williams. All three put together scored over 31 points in that last game, So, see, of course, I'm happy that the Clippers lost because I never thought that the Clippers were like a great team who can just, roll on and win the championship, with whatever team that they put up, but they had to fight. I really thought the Lakers, were the stronger, team on books as well, but that's a different story altogether now. But, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets because you got to also applaud the coaching staff and Mike Malone especially.
Exactly. Mike Malone made all the necessary adjustments. He outcoached Doc Rivers. And really quick, Mr. Kumar, the Clippers players are more focused on nicknames rather than playing. Like Paul George calls himself Playoff P. No, it's more like Pandemic P. Lemon Pepper Lou. Like just focus on playing Clippers. And I was very impressed with Nikola Jokic in Game 7 because at the beginning, they put him in a lot of post-ups and they were forcing double teams by the Clippers. And the Nuggets guards were doing a great job of cutting, and he was finding them. He had 16 points, 13 assists, and 22 rebounds. That's just crazy. He had a triple-double, just completely dominated the game. He even threw it behind the head pass, or over the head pass, actually. He was just toying with the Clippers all game, Mr. Kumar.
I think he is the only player to have a 20-point rebound triple-double in the playoffs.
He is. And Mr. Kumar, I read the stat the other day. Did you know the Nuggets starters outscored the entire Clippers team 90-89? I can't even fathom that. You are the favorites, and you have all this offense and talent, and you let the Nuggets starters outscore you. And don't get me wrong, the Nuggets starters are no slouch. They're a great team. And Paul Millsap, really, I think that also helped his resurgence. He really led them to victory in game 5 because he made some big shots, and that confidence carried over to game 7. And so the veterans of the Nuggets really stepped up, and I think that was the difference. And the Nuggets were more poised and calm than the Clippers.
Absolutely, absolutely. I told you in the beginning also, it's just about having that confidence. And, after that 5th and 6th game during the series, I think the LA Clippers didn't have a single answer for the Jokic-Murray combination. Yeah. And, you could see in the body language that, they were not, putting a stamp on the game or something like that, which a team like that should be able to do, because you have Leonard, you have Paul George, you have Pat Bev, you have Lou Williams, who's been a 3-time 6th man of the year. You have the current 6th man of the year, Montrezl Harrell. So looking at that team, you would always feel that, why aren't these people putting pressure on Denver Nuggets? I mean, so it was the other way around, because once Denver got going, the pressure was totally on the Clippers, and they just totally crushed, and they got choked.
Oh my God! They were really literally feeling the heat, and they were being frozen, like they were in the cold, like in Antarctica. My God! In the 4th quarter, Mr. Kumar, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two top 10 players in the NBA. 0 for 11 in the 4th quarter. Oh my gosh, it was just horrible and pathetic. But I have to credit, Jamal Murray, because the Clippers built the lead in the 2nd quarter, but Jamal Murray kind of got the Nuggets close before halftime, because he started becoming more aggressive. He was shooting the mid-range shots, the floaters. In the 3rd quarter, Clippers built another 7-point lead, but Jamal Murray always answered back when it looked like the Clippers were going to run away with this game. And he and Nikola Jokic, like you said, made the Clippers just lose spirit and lose heart, because this great defensive team could not stop these two dynamic duo of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And this Nuggets team, Mr. Kumar, man, they have a very, very bright future and a great young core that they're going to be successful in the future.
Yeah, I mean, even our audience, Muthu Rangam is asking whether a lack of good center was it a bother for the Clippers? I think yes, because ultimately they couldn't stop Jokic, and they would have pretty much struggled the same way if they had met the Lakers. We cannot contemplate, or we cannot speculate on what would happen to that series if the Lakers met the Clippers in the conference finals. But at the end of the day, you can see from this particular series that the Clippers really struggled. So I think they really need a good center. So yeah, people, please connect with us on live chat on our YouTube, Ekalavya's YouTube channel, and of course connect with us on our Instagram and Twitter handles. And of course, we keep the comments coming, because that's what makes the show, lively and of course interactive. And we want the comments to keep coming. Thank you so much. But Mr. Patel, I think, do you have any additional comments, or do you?
So yeah, just one real quick thing, Mr. Kumar, regarding the question about do the Clippers have a good center? So the Clippers the Clippers literally threw everything at Nikola Jokic. They went big with Zubac and Harrell. They went small with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they literally had no answer for Nikola Jokic. He beat them on the pick and pop early in the series when he was just wetting 3-pointers. And then towards the end of the series, games 5 through 7, he went inside. So he really just cut the Clippers' throats, and they just really had no answer for him. And I think Nikola Jokic is really starting to get his name out there and getting more name recognition among the NBA fans, which deservingly so. And I'm very, very happy with the Denver Nuggets that they're able to advance to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. They're coming. I think it's been. I think the last time the Western Conference Finals, even they were there. I think they played the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, if I'm not mistaken. That was during
Yeah, with Carmelo Anthony. So yeah, props and congratulations to the Nuggets. So let's move on to the conference finals. It's time for the conference finals.
Yeah, so starting in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. And the Boston Celtics the Miami Heat won the first game in overtime. And this was all about the Heat's defense. You know, in the first half, they threw a zone at the Boston Celtics, and it was a different zone than the Toronto Raptors because they were putting their small players like Goran Dragic and Tyler Hero at the bottom of the zone. And they had their bigger guys with larger wingspans, and Jay Crowder, Jimmy Butler, and Andre Iguodala at the top to be able to disrupt the passing lanes because they know that the Boston Celtics like to have a lot of ball movement. But in the second half, they went to a man-to-man defense, and they did a great job of walling off the Celtics guards and played great individual defense and not letting them get to the paint and to the free throw line and making them shoot contested shots. You know, at the end of the game, Kemba Walker shot a contested three-point shot, and so did Jason Tatum, and those are not high percentage shots. So this game one was all about the Heat's defense.
Absolutely. I think that this series is going to be all about defense. You know, Bam Adebayo, he's in the All-NBA defensive team. Marcus Smart in the other team, who's also in the All-NBA defensive team. So this series is so evenly matched. You know, for me, it was really hard to really pick a winner in this series because both of these teams have their own strengths and own weaknesses, and you know, it's a really difficult job as an analyst to kind of pick a winner in this one because Tatum is playing well. Of course, he needs to get really good support from Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker especially, and of course you have a good shooting arsenal for the Miami Heat with Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and of course Jimmy Butler and even Goran Dragic. So I mean, I think it's going to be like who's a better team on that particular day, and that's why I picked the Miami to probably win this series because they just drew first blood in that first game. So I'm going to pick Miami in 7 games, but I definitely think this series is going to 7 games.
I definitely agree with you, Mr. Kumar. It is going 7 games, but I'm going on the other side. I picked the Boston Celtics to win in 7. But, I have to give major props to the Heat because they did a great job of using their advantages. One of their advantages is Bam Adebayo on Daniel Tice. He completely dominated that matchup, even fouling out Daniel Tice. The Heat had the bench advantage. Crowder had a good game. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic. They had a better supporting cast and more balanced scoring. And the Heat, they did a great job of the ball movement, something that the Celtics did not do. They had 32 assists and 48 points in the paint, Mr. Kumar. They did not fall for the Boston Celtics trying to make them shoot threes. They did a great job of pounding it in the paint and really doing it and putting pressure on this Boston Celtics defense.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest advantage that probably Miami Heat have is the 3-point shooting, especially in the last series against Milwaukee. Butler had a 45% 3-point percentage. Crowder was like really a good shooter. He improved his 3-point shooting and he shot 43%. You had Tyler Hero shooting 42%. You had Olenek shooting 45.5%. So I think if the Heat need to probably win this series, I think it's going to be that 3-point action because, whatever you say, Boston Celtics is really not a good 3-point shooting team. Like Walker actually only shot 27% from the 3-point line.
He did, and he really struggled. In the Raptors series, and then now so far in the Heat series. And I agree, Soham Gupta, is Kemba Walker a back-to-back All-Star starter, still capable of doing more than he is? Well, he better if the Celtics are going to win the series, because right now it's just Jason Tatum at 30 points, Marcus Smart at 26 points. They really need Kemba Walker to start scoring more because he can find his own shot, score at all 3 levels in the paint, the mid-range, and 3. And they also need Gordon Hayward back to get that 4th option of and making it the Boston Celtics multi-dimensional on offense, and it's tougher for this Heat, defense to stop them because Jason Tatum's not going to be able to do everything because the Heat threw multiple defenders at him. They threw Crowder, Butler, Iguodala on him. So he's going to need some help, and so that's why they're really going to need Gordon Hayward. But Mr. Kumar, I was very disappointed in the Celtics defense in the fourth quarter. They played great defense up to that point. But in the fourth quarter, they were just allowing the Heat to get to the foul line, get to the basket, get their players in foul trouble. The Celtics need to do a better job of clamping down on the defensive end on the floor for 48 minutes because this Heat team, even though the Celtics have the advantage on the offensive side of the ball, this Heat team could still score in bunches. And Munish is asking, Butler is a more reliable shooter and in great confidence, and no one in Celtics can match him right now. What do you think about Jimmy Butler, Mr. Kumar?
He's been phenomenal. I think he's found a new home in the Miami Heat. And Manish, thank you very much for watching the show right from the US. He's a friend of mine. That's how I recognize that particular comment. But yes, when he was in Chicago Bulls, he was a good player, but he had some differences. He moved on, and then he went to Philadelphia 76ers. Again, it was not, like a welcoming team or, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid already there. And I think he's really found a place where he can call it home now because he's flourishing under Eric Spoelstra. People think of him as a leader because this is a young team. You have, Bam Adebayo, you have Tyler Hero, you have Duncan Robinson. All of them are like, rookie or sophomore. And, that's that. And they look up to somebody like, Jimmy Butler, who's been, an experienced player in the NBA. So I think this has brought out the best in him. And he's becoming a leader with the Miami Heat. And I hope he gets support from Jay Crowder. And there is also a few minutes from Andre Iguodala, who comes in and, props up the defense. So I think, as I said in the earlier part of the show, this is going to be a defensive series. It's all about who's going to lock down whom, and Boston have the advantage in terms of size, but I think the Miami Heat have advantage in terms of the quickness, and that's what it is. But Pranay Naidu says, that block on Tatum in the end was, ooh, look at that.
That was fire, man. Like, he literally, Tatum tried to posterize Bam Adebayo, and Bam Adebayo was like, nope, not in my house. He wasn't having anything with it.
And that's a tweet from Irvin Magic Johnson, the Hall of Famer from the LA Lakers, whom we're going to discuss, very shortly. But at the end of the day, that was an amazing, amazing block. I think I would rate it number 2 after that LeBron block against Golden State Warriors. That still remains number 1.
Mr. Kumar, I could see that from a mile away. I knew you were going with that. No, that LeBron block was insane. And it was in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, so it was in a bigger moment and at a key time when the Cavaliers really needed that. So Pranay is also saying, this is a great NBA talk show. Love it. Indian ballers needed this the most. Thank you, Patel Kumar. Well, thank you, Pranay, and all our audience members for watching, and continue to comment. We love, this interaction and talking to you guys. And this makes the show, much more fun and engaging. So appreciate it. So, Mr. Kumar, before we move on to the Lakers and Nuggets, is there anything else that you would like to add about this Heat Celtics Eastern Conference Finals?
Oh, well, it's going to be a great series. I think Game 2 is, tonight for you and tomorrow morning for us. So let's hope. Yeah, I think it's a must win for Miami Heat. And let me tell you, I picked the Miami Heat only because it was LeBron's former team.
Everything always goes back to LeBron James, Mr. Kumar. Oh, man, I love it. It would be crazy, though. I don't think it's going to happen, but if LeBron James and the Lakers play the Heat in the finals, LeBron playing against his former team, oh, man, that'll be fun. So, but now moving on to the Western Conference Finals, the Los Angeles Lakers, and not the Clippers, but the Denver Nuggets, who they're going to be playing. And so... Or actually, excuse me. So before we forgot to say the last poll, the audience poll, who's going to win the series? And it looks like the audience agrees with you, Mr. Kumar, that 52% of the audience says the Miami Heat are going to win the series against the Boston Celtics. But for the
Yeah,
Lakers,
but I think, yeah, I mean, it's even I was in a dilemma. I mean, it's like equal matchup. So as you can see, even the audience says it's almost 50-50. I mean, just a marginal edge for the Heat there. But I think that's because you already have one game done, and probably it gets swayed in favor of the Heat. But that's fine. That's fine.
Yep. And now, so Mr. Kumar, let's talk about your favorite series. I know you've been waiting to talk about this in the show. The Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. And I'll let you go first, Mr. Kumar, because I know you're biting at the bit to talk about the series.
Well, LA Lakers, they come into the Western Conference Finals after a decade. And, what can I say? I mean, we talked a lot about the Denver Nuggets, in our previous section, but you can see from this chart. I mean, of course, the whole reliance for the Lakers has been on LBJ and AD. I think that combination has really worked wonders, and they've gelled really well right from the get-go, right from the first game. Their defense has been picking up. They had a fantastic defense against Portland. They had a fantastic defense against the Houston Rockets. And of course, the experience, the playoff experience. You have LeBron James, who's been to the finals, 9 times. You have Rajon Rondo, who is a championship player. You have, JaVale McGee, who's won a championship with the Golden State Warriors. So I mean, this team, I think it's just coming or peaking probably at the right time. That's what I would say. But once again, I think we all know what the flaws are for the Lakers. It really depends who's going to be that third scorer, whether it's going to be Kuzma, whether it's going to be Rajon Rondo, whether it's going to be, Caruso, or whether it's going to be, somebody else, or Morris, somebody like that. But once again, I think it's all boils down. But I would give, of course, a slighter edge to the Lakers because even, during the regular season, they're 3-1. They played 4 times, and they have been able to restrict Jokic to an average of 15 or 16 points. So that's a good sign, and they have a better matchup against Jokic. They have Dwight Howard, they have JaVale McGee, and Anthony Davis himself.
Exactly. And key for the Lakers is really making Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic work on the defensive end of the floor. I foresee that the Lakers are going to put them in a lot of pick and roll with LeBron and AD because Nikola Jokic is a really slow-footed center and he has trouble guarding ball screens. So if they just put him in that ball screen and make him get in foul trouble and really be able to dominate the Nuggets in the paint, then I think the Nuggets are really going to be able to struggle because they're not a defensive juggernaut. And then on the defensive end on the floor for the Nuggets, or for the Lakers, it's all about stopping Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And I don't think they're going to double team them and overreact like the Clippers did. I think they're going to play them straight up and trust that their on-ball defense of Danny Green, Kadavius Caldwell-Pope, and Alex Caruso, and after LeBron James, I think their one-on-one and man-to-man defense will be enough to shut down this Nuggets team because they definitely Nuggets have gotten because they can go nuclear, both of them, because they went nuclear against the Jazz and they scored a lot of points against the Clippers. So I think they got the Lakers' full attention. But Mr. Kumar, if the Lakers play focused and play to their identity in their game, the Lakers should have no problem in the series. I'm going to give the Nuggets a couple of games because just of their offensive ability, but I foresee that the Lakers are going to win the series 4-2.
Well, I mean, I think we are giving a couple of games, to Denver only because the way they played, the series against the Clippers, right? Because that's how it was. And thank you, Vinod, for your compliments. I mean, my namesake.
Thank you.
So keep watching the show, and of course, we come in every Thursday, 7 p.m. And of course, you can always watch it anytime after that. But once again, I mean, if Denver Nuggets, if it was just Denver Nuggets, before this Clippers series, and if they had come to the Western Conference Finals, I think we would have probably given only one game to the Nuggets. We would have said it would have been a 4-1 series. for the Lakers, right? But I think we also recognize that the Denver Nuggets is not some fly by night kind of team, and well, will Lakers consider the game one as a figuring out game one as they did in round one and round two?
Might as well. It worked for them in round one and round two. They spotted a game to the Blazers and they spotted a game to the Rockets, and they ended up doing the gentleman's sweep on them.
But this is where I think they're going to be a little bit different in this particular series, and so I think, I think the Lakers are going to come out stronger than what they did with the Portland or the Houston Rockets, because they've had a good rest. They've been able to see what the Nuggets have done, and they can be as lax as they were against the Houston Rockets, because even there were a couple of games when the Houston Rockets tried to come back and win a game against the Lakers. But I don't know. At least by example, I can say that the Lakers have a better defense. They have at least shown a better defense, in terms of making comebacks from their opponents.
Exactly. And Manish is saying it will be fun to see the Nuggets come back from 16 down against the Lakers. Mr. Kumar, I got the blueprint for the Denver Nuggets. All they need to do is spot the Lakers a 3-1 lead, and then they got them right where they want them. No, I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. The Lakers are not the LA Clippers. They're more mentally tough. If the Lakers are up 3-1 on the Nuggets, the series is over, Mr. Kumar.
Well, Muthurangam is asking whether AD is better in blocks and Jokic is better in assists. What do you think is going to make come in more handy? I think both, you need both the assets. But what do you forget is that AD is not only better in blocks, but he's also better in scoring. He's been more consistent throughout this season in terms of scoring. He's averaging almost 29 points, during the entire season. And here you go. The audience thinks that, it's going to be a cakewalk for the Lakers against the Nuggets. But I want to be cautious as a Laker fan. I just want to tell LeBron and AD, go do your thing. Go do your thing. Get those 65, 70 points a game, and just hope for, some assistance from your other teammates. And, you're going to win the series hands down.
Exactly. And I want to get back quickly to that audience comment asking whether AD is better in blocks or Jokic is better in assists. Well, if you're a Nuggets, Mr. Kumar, you need Nikola Jokic to come out aggressive, because in the first two rounds, he kind of came out facilitating. But in order for the Nuggets to win the series, Nikola Jokic is going to have to come out and look for a shot and be aggressive and set the tone for this Denver Nuggets team. Then he'll make the Lakers focus on him. Then that's when he can get Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, Paul Millsap, Gary Harris involved. So I think it all starts with Nikola Jokic if the Nuggets want any chance to win the series.
Well, I believe that Jokic is going to be a little bit less lethal in this series because of the defense that the Lakers have. I actually feel that if the Nuggets have any chance of winning this series, it has to be a team effort. Jamal Murray can probably do a lot better because, generally speaking, the perimeter defense of the Lakers, is considered to be, not as good. But they haven't, shown any signs of that. They need Michael Porter Jr. to also contribute heavily in terms of scoring. They also need the veteran presence of Paul Millsap. So anyway, if you really match up, it's just sensible to pick the Lakers.
It is sensible to pick the Lakers. Lakers are the better team. They have LeBron James and AD. They have more star power, definitely. And remember to connect with us at Patel and Kumar Instagram and Twitter page and keep the comments coming. We're enjoying them. So now, Mr. Kumar, your favorite section. Moving on to the spiciest segment on YouTube, the Indian Tadka segment. It's getting hot in here.
I really had to have some. Thank you. Come again. Well, welcome to the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show's Indian Tadka section, which is the You know, oh man, it's so spicy. It's so spicy down here. But thank you very much for joining in. And what are we going to discuss today, Mr. Patel?
So in this Indian Tadka segment, we're going to be discussing for an NBA exhibition game in India, which team should participate and which city should the NBA exhibition games be in. And Mr. Kumar, you're the local there in India. I'll let you take it away first.
Uh, of course, my personal preference would have been Mumbai, but of course, they had the first NBA exhibition game last season between the Pacers and the Sacramento Kings in Mumbai, and what an electrifying moment it was. And especially, being an NBA fan, you never thought about watching a live NBA game in your hometown. So thank you to the NBA for bringing these two teams. It was awesome. It was I just had a lot of fun going to those games. But if you really ask me in terms of who do you think, where do you think the next game should be? I don't know. I would say probably Chennai, because I think the basketball scene in Chennai is really hot. I mean, you have a lot of basketball fans. You have a lot of teams. Basketball is a very popular sport in that particular state. So and that's the reason. And of course, they have a decent sized arena as well. Where you could probably host an NBA game. So those are the reasons for me to pick Chennai.
And that's a good choice, Mr. Kumar, but I'm going to pick Bangalore because, first of all, it's a great basketball city. It's the third largest city, in India. They have a great, stadium, and they have hardcore, basketball fans there. And I got to give a shout out to our executive producer, Gopal, who's also from Bangalore. So, Gopal, I hope there's a game in Bangalore. They definitely deserve it. There's a lot of technology, companies there. It's like the Silicon Valley, of India. So I think Bangalore would be a great destination for an NBA exhibition game. And it looks like the audience believes that either Bangalore or another city should have an exhibition game in India.
Absolutely. I wouldn't mind even having the game in Bengaluru. Once again, very cosmopolitan city, a lot of stuff to do, and of course, I think the NBA teams would love coming to either of those cities. So I would pick Chennai as like the basketball fan capital and stuff like that, and Bengaluru because it's more modern, more cosmopolitan, and of course, a larger NBA following, perhaps.
It is. And as regarding to the teams that are, that would play in the exhibition game, I would say it has to be your Los Angeles Lakers, Mr. Kumar, and then the Golden State Warriors. Man, the Indian fans would love this because it would be a star-studded, matchup with LeBron James and AD. And then the Warriors have Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. And it looks like the audience agrees that the Lakers and the Warriors would be a great exhibition matchup. And the Grizzlies are a close third because our friend Coach James and John Morant would welcome sight to be able to come to India. What do you think, Mr. Kumar?
Well, I don't. Of course, Lakers and Warriors. My mouth is watering already because I'd be running around India or running around like some guy who's high on chocolate, who's high on sweets, just so hyper because it's just an exciting competition. But I think one of our fans actually wants the Nets and the Warriors, of course, concerning Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But man, you know me. If you ask me, the only team I want is the Lakers. And the only person I want is LeBron James. So, any other team, it doesn't matter to me. It could be even, Lakers versus, some team from Ludhiana or something. I don't care. I just want Lakers to be here.
Oh man, Mr. Kumar, it would be crazy if LeBron James comes to India. I bet you would follow him around, try to meet him in person, be like, I'm your biggest fan in India. So just for your sake of meeting LeBron James, that the Lakers should definitely, be able to come to India and know that you'll be the Shannon Sharp of India fans, Mr. Kumar, with the goat mask. Oh man,
But
LeBron
I just hope I don't meet a Skip Bayless. That's all, you know.
Oh man.
Otherwise there'll be punches flying. And
Oh
of
man.
course, a big shout out to Sonia Raman, of course, a coach of Indian origin, who has been selected as the assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. And you never know, we may probably try to bring her onto our show. What do you think, Mr. Patel?
Oh man, if she came on the show, that would be amazing. And major congratulations to Sonia Raman to continue to break the boundaries. You know, being an assistant coach, in the NBA, she had a very successful stint, in college. And the Grizzlies are just very progressive, forward thinking, and I just love what they're doing. And like Mr. Kumar said, give a little teaser out there that we may bring Sonia Raman and Coach Jenkins, and maybe even possibly John Morant on a future show. So stay tuned, everybody.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Of course, we're trying our best, but at the end of the day, we all have to end the show at some point in time. And
No!
I think that the time has come a little bit nearby. But before you go, we have a very, very funny video for you, especially for you, Mr. Patel, especially for you. And I think the Indian fans are going to love it even more. And this is how the Clippers are leaving the bubble. This is the live footage from Orlando.
This is the Clippers as we speak right now. They're heading back. They're gone.
Yeah. See, because even if Rajinikanth played for that team, they couldn't have won it.
Nope. They could have had Jesus on sneakers, Mr. Kumar. It would not have been enough. It would not have been enough to stop the Denver Nuggets. And the Clippers are definitely gone fishing. And as Damian Lillard pointed out to Patrick Beverley, the Clippers will make arrangements for Paul George and Patrick Beverley to go to Cancun and be on vacation.
Yeah, I mean, they need a vacation, let me tell you that. But once again, guys, thank you very much for tuning into our show. Thank you for those lovely comments. Please keep them coming every show. Connect with us on Twitter and Instagram at Patel and Kumar. And of course, like, share, and subscribe to our channel on the Ekalavya's YouTube channel. Set your reminder for our show every Thursday, 7 p.m. And thank you very much for tuning in. Mr. Patel, last words from you.
Yep, thank you to everybody for watching the show. Remember to continue to share this, with your friends. And there's no other place you want to be at 7 p.m. India time on Thursday for the NBA playoffs, as we're really heating up and we're one step closer to crowning a champion. And thank you again to everybody for all the support. And we'll see you next week. Signing off.
The Clippers getting a haircut. Clippers are getting a haircut.